horrible week for Atlanta sports continued on Sunday as the Falcons lost in excruciating fashion to the Cardinals on a Matt Bryant missed PAT. But it wasn't bad luck that did it in the Dirty Birds, it was bad coaching. Specifically Dan Quinn's defense, which can't stop anyone right now. That means sooner rather than later, Arthur Blank's going to have to make a change. We'll talk about it next on AJC Falcons News Now.
This is AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Brandon Adams and former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith.
So we have been here in some form or fashion, 5 times in the last 6 weeks talking about a Falcons loss. This one now at the hand of the Arizona Cardinals. And Chuck, at this point in time, I'm not really quite sure where you go from here. We have rebooted and reran the same kind of discussion over and over again. The Falcons defense is not good enough to win games in the NFL.
No, it's not, and it's borderline embarrassing, but the best thing I can describe it is dysfunctional. You watch guys, this was very disappointing early on when you saw Falcon players sprinting to the sideline because of the personnel mistakes that were happening on the sideline. Yeah, that's a good point. It started off, it was just dysfunction. It was unbelievable starting out the game on things that we thought they had got corrected, out in the Arizona, what do they call it? The Arizona vacation.
Yeah, like Club Arizona or something. Arizona. Kind of spending out some time out west for a couple weeks, hoping it might make things different for Atlanta, and it didn't. And I realized that, the way this game is going to kind of be processed by a lot of people in the midst of, and I've lived in Atlanta my entire life, the Atlanta area anyway at least, this is about as bad as it's been for the sports fans of the city going back to last week with the Braves and their horrible Game 5 loss to St. Louis Cardinals, what happened to Georgia on Saturday against South Carolina, the Falcons seemingly losing on an extra point by Matt Bryant, who had been, up to this point in time, a reliable kicker in his Falcons career, but kind of letting them down when it mattered most against the Cardinals. In fact, I thought Steve Hummer, who's the columnist of the AJC, who was in Glendale for this game on Sunday along with D. Orlando Ledbetter, I thought he had kind of a funny line about this. I'll show you his line from his column in terms of just how bad things have been lately. Steve writes that a memo to whichever universal power is in charge of sports, enough already, Hummer writes. The themes of loss and culpability have been exhausted in and around Atlanta. Can we just invoke the mercy rule and call an end to this blame game? So funny stuff from Hummer kind of tying in what happens to the Falcons and the odd way it loses on the Bryant missed PAT with everything else that's happened for some local sports teams as of late. However, for me, Chuck, this isn't so much about the bad luck of who could have ever seen Matt Bryant missing an extra point. This is a little bit more about the bad coaching and the fact that once again, a AFC, or in this case, I guess NFC West quarterback, but, you go on the road, one of these road trips, a quarterback is made to look like a hero. Kyler Murray had struggled a bit coming into this game, and yet you've got Tom Brenneman and Chris Spielman on the broadcast. Brenneman sounds like the most broadcastery broadcaster you ever heard. Wow, Kyler Murray's really starting to figure some things out. It's like that. It seems like we're hearing that from the broadcast team for every one of these Falcons games. So I don't blame this on the bad luck of the missed Bryant PAT. I blame it on what I believe now has to be called bad coaching.
I agree, but one thing I will say, Chris Spielman was hitting some home runs.
His analysis game was good.
He was doing a great job because he talked about the Falcons, number one. The first thing he talked about was the zone. We talked about that all last week on this show. We talked about it on Monday, right? We talked about it the week before with the Falcons with the Texans.
Yeah.
The soft zone and the Falcons' inability to make the right adjustments at the right time. Dan Quinn, when you watch the substitution pattern, when you watch their inability to make plays, it just takes you back to, like you said last week. And I didn't know if we were quite this far. Has he lost the ear of the players?
Yeah.
Because they weren't doing right. They weren't doing right.
One of the points Spielman made, and you're a former player, so you probably noticed this during the game. I didn't notice until he said it. When you're in that zone coverage and they're running kind of deep routes and you turn your back to go chase receivers, all of a sudden now the check down route, you don't even see it anymore. That was an example of something that bit Atlanta on Sunday.
Well, Chris is right, and Brandon, when you play the zone, there's something that you're taught is called zone eyes. Zone eyes is you have your eyes back on the quarterback because in zone, you're just playing an area. It's an area that you're playing.
Right.
Now, when you got man eyes, your back is going to be turned because you're playing man to man.
Right.
The problem for the Falcons is when they had man eyes, the pass rush, they lost contain, so the quarterback was able to scramble. So when your back is turned, you can't lose contain. So there were so many little things that didn't work in the framework of what they were trying to do, but That's exactly. It was man eyes, zone eyes. That's where the Falcons.
I think that's a really good point. The other thing that was brought up is when you're in that zone situation like you are, this was a devastating line. Spielman said they were essentially covering dirt because when guys were coming into their zone, they weren't going in to pick up that man. They weren't kind of breaking into the seam and putting a body on that man. They're basically just standing there guarding the grass, which is not a description you want for your defensive philosophy.
Yeah, no, you're right. I seen Isaiah Oliver one time. It might have been KZ. They were both in zone. They were both played the swing pass, so it was two guys out on the hash, right, outside in the flats. But the problem was there were receivers that were dragging inside of them. They were basically, he was saying they were kicking rocks or whatever. So what that's called is they were cutting green grass. There was no one out there.
That's
exactly
cutting green grass.
They were cutting green grass.
It's a good way to say that. All right, so I'm going to take a lot of your comments here. It's AJC Falcons News Now. We're sponsored by Miller Lite. Miller Lite is the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons and a great choice for you for your game watching party. It tastes great. It's just 96 calories. It's great to have Miller Lite and all of you as a part of AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite here today. And by the way, if you're joining us for the first time, this is the former Falcon Chuck Smith. My name is Brandon Adams, and it's great to have all of you with us. So I'm going to hear from you, a lot of your comments coming up in a moment. Before we get to that, though, I do want to give you kind of a survey of what some of the national media is saying about Atlanta. As I said before, maybe a lot of national talking head types kind of echoing the fact that, listen, you're not going to put the finger of blame on this for Matt Bryant, as bad as the missed PAT was. This is about another day in which Atlanta does not take care of what it needs to do defensively. If it's not for a big-time comeback by the Falcons offense, which we'll get to in a moment, this actually kind of looks like another blowout as opposed to what it ended up being, which was kind of a nail-biter down to the end. Let me start with a name that Falcons fans love and respect, a guy we've heard from before on the show. How about Deion Sanders, the former Falcons great, pulling no punches on the NFL Network? He believes that Dan Quinn is about to get fired. Here is Deion Sanders.
A lot of people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and this team offensively, they're too darn good for this. When you pull up to the stadium, it's 31 points or 30 points on the scoreboard. Your head coach is a defensive guy. Your defensive team is ranked 31st amongst the NFL. Ain't but 32 flavors in the NFL. You get where I'm going? This just don't make no sense. Then you go and lose to a rookie-led team, the Arizona Cardinals, and you were getting blown out. You made a miraculous comeback and almost took it into overtime. But nevertheless, you lose. And then you got a tough schedule coming up. The Rams, Seattle, New Orleans, and then Carolina, who's on a roll. And you think you're going to have some job security?
So as Deion says, there ain't but 32 flavors in the NFL. You're down there at
Classic.
the bottom.
That was hilarious.
I mean, honestly, the passion that Deion's speaking with there, the intensity in his voice, it's what fans want to hear. I think that Deion's right. Now, we can get into and debate this, when we will, about whether Atlanta would benefit from doing this right now, because I believe that one way or another, maybe it should have before now, but Dan Quinn's coaching career for the Falcons ended yesterday. Just a matter of how much longer he coaches, how many more games he coaches. But Deion, I don't believe, is wrong there, and even though Deion's kind of an animated guy, I don't think he's going to shoot from the hip, off the cuff too much here. I think he's right about what's ultimately going to happen. It just becomes a matter of when it comes to the Falcons, because what else could you possibly hope to see from Dan Quinn when the defensive stuff has been the same week in and week out?
Yeah, and the defensive stuff, I mean, what we're seeing is pretty unbelievable, especially when you say you built this team in your, in your likeness. I want fast, I want physical. But right now, it's almost embarrassing. I can't even lie to you. I'm sitting there watching what's happening. And when I told my son, I said, the Falcons hadn't gotten the game in 2 sacks. Then I'm watching TV. I said 3 games. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I really could not believe it. And the thing that's the most disappointing, too, a little bit about what happened here is there was some dysfunction with the pass rush already before the season started. Because think about this. Dan Quinn comes out publicly and says, I'm taking over the coordinator. Right. I'm going to have my hands on Vic Beasley. Right? Yeah. I'm going to touch Vic. Hell, Vic didn't have enough respect to even go back to camp and work with Dan Quinn.
That's a good point.
Vic, so when you think about it, the dysfunction, it was whack how it happened, not only for the foundation of a pass rush, because Vic Beasley didn't have enough respect for Dan Quinn to even come back. Now, whether the touching of the hands would have helped or not, I mean, it still would have shown some solidarity, but to me, that was a bad sign, and that was also a bad start for Dan Quinn.
Well, how about Vic yesterday? horse collar, like right in front of the officials. I mean, like, here's a guy that's beaten bad on the play, then reaches over there and just does a horse collar, like right in front of the officials. I want to say, have you never seen a professional wrestling match? Don't you know you can't do this like right in front? If you're going to do it, you can't do it like right in front of the officials, plain as day. I mean, he just reaches his hand like that and pulls the guy down. I mean, you got to make it a little less obvious if you're going to do it.
Yeah. It's going to be one of the biggest disappointments, I'll say, maybe in Falcons franchise. One of the biggest disappointments ever is Vic Beasley.
Right.
I just think from
the one big year, never following up on it after that.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why. Because Vic Beasley, he came here, and I talk about this all the time. Vic came with so much hype, but let me tell you why. There's so much more to it. Not that he's from Georgia. He went to Clemson. Mm-hmm. People in Atlanta have watched this kid dominate, and everybody.
This is a college football town. He played for college football.
I remember when the draft was happening. I mean, until they thought they could get the running back from Georgia. Now that was different, but before that draft, everybody wanted pass rushing, and most of the people talked Vic Beasley because he fit the part. But just so disappointing, and I'm most disappointed because them suckers ain't learned no moves. I'm talking straight from the hip. Mm-hmm. I ain't talking about what the Falcons are history. I'm disappointed watching guys in this conference use spin moves, chop moves, all these different moves. But also, I'm just disappointed seeing him and Tack ain't doing nothing. Yeah. Again, the best rusher on the D-line is Adrian Claiborne. Yeah. And I know everybody says Grady. Claiborne's the best rusher. He had 5-6 pressures yesterday when they put him in the game. But it's really whack, man, how the development hasn't went with these guys. And they need to take some of the blame, too.
Let me also let you hear from Tim Hasselbeck, analyst for ESPN on SportsCenter this morning, also kind of laying it out that when you see the defense, and Quinn is the defensive coordinator, when you see it underperform week after week, it's not going to be very long before people start pointing that finger towards Quinn. Sounds like that's what Hasselbeck is doing here. Take a listen to this.
They're a team that's really struggling. I think the thing that's probably been most surprising to me, because there's been moments of them offensively that they look like themselves, especially with Freeman back. There have been elements of them running the football hard. You saw him today even involved in the passing game. What's surprising to me is their defense stinks. Defense coordinator and having a lot of success. And so, look, they've had good players on that side of the ball in the past. They're not playing like they're good players on that side of the ball now, and I think that is probably the thing that's maybe most concerning. They've gone through some coordinators there in Atlanta, and so just at some point, I think people are going to start to say, okay, wait a second now, now we're looking at the head coach. That's just the reality of it.
So I think that Hasselbeck brings up a pretty good point. Yesterday in particular, you can't really blame the Falcons' offense for what goes down there. No. Offense kind of did its job, getting you back in this game here late. To me, this comes down to, as we said before, it's about the defense. I mean, yesterday, we'll get to the offense in a moment, but Devontae Freeman thought brought you a little bit more of a spark. Mm-hmm. Offense, I thought, kind of did its job. It's this Quinn defense that's not getting it done.
Well, I was really impressed. I'm going to tell you, I was really impressed with Caleb McGarry. He did a good job. Mm-hmm. Look, the last 2 weeks against J.J. Watt and this week against, Terrell Suggs, he was solid now. The offensive line opened up holes, and we talked about the Falcons' ability to improve as far as offense. You got to open up the holes. Matt Ryan was able to get the flash and pass. Hooper right now is a Pro Bowler. I mean, if there's anybody out there playing better than Hooper in the NFC at tight end, hey, but he is my fantasy guy, so I'm pretty excited about that. I like young Hoop. But Hooper's doing great. I like the Falcons yesterday. They were attacking. I mean, you saw Ridley get in the act, Sanu get in the act. I mean, Cutter called a great game yesterday. They got the job done. But defensively, I'm going to put this out there for the first time. When you become the head coach, when you're the head coach, you're the defensive coordinator, and it's well known you're the D-line coach, that has to do with ego, and that has to do with someone who basically is putting himself above the team. There's no way in the history of the game that a defensive coordinator can become that person. Let me tell you now the difference. Everybody says what? Offensive coordinators do it. Andy Reid does it. Sean McVay does it. There's a difference between defense and offense. Defense, we have to adjust to offensive personnel. Offensive guys, they have a script. So already from the first 15 plays of an NFL game, guys, a lot of them scripted. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what the defense does. Defense, you have to make adjustments so there's more time in preparation because you're adjusting to what the offense is doing. There's no way. This is different. So on the sideline, Q's have to make adjustments, has to deal with the personnel, got to help the offense, got to make sure the special team's okay. And then you're calling the defense. Now you're worrying about the pass rush substitution. A defensive coordinator, in my opinion, how many guys in the NFL do that? How many head coaches in the NFL are defensive coordinators? I like to look that up because it's different in offense. A head coach cannot be a defensive coordinator. A head coach can be an offensive coordinator.
I think that's a really good point. Let me let you hear one more ESPN guy before we get to your comments. John Fox, former coach around the league, also echoing what a lot of folks have said, that when you see Atlanta right now, hard to believe this defense, as Chuck just explained, led by Quinn, is very close to winning very many games. Here's John Fox.
Offensively, they have plenty of weapons and they score points, and they've been pretty consistent at that. They're just not slowing anybody down. They're bottom of third of the league. They were a year ago. They had injuries, but even some of those injured players that have come back now have not come back to where they used to be. So they're hurting a little bit on defense.
All right, so let's run through a bunch of comments here. Antonio Robinson, echoing your point, Chuck, says, all the things you just described about how difficult it is to manage both jobs at the same time. He says that's why he's trying to run a basic defense. Do you believe that's true?
I totally agree. You got to keep it simple because they can't even get lined up. The basic fundamentals of defense, you got to be able to get lined up. It drove me crazy watching guys running off the field, not being, and the Falcons, how many times they had? I'm counting with my son. Oh, they only got 10 this time. Oh, they got 12. They got to call a timeout. Can't do it all. Got to have somebody, to help you, man.
Tavares Christopher says he wants to fire both Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff. And I guess, Chuck, we're going to kind of go through a lot of the comments that'll lead us to discussion there as well. Do you think Atlanta benefits if you fire Quinn in season? If you fire him right now, do you think Atlanta would benefit from that?
No, I don't necessarily think the Falcons would benefit. I think the perception from the fans would love that Arthur Blank said, boom, we ain't taking this. But from a city standpoint, it would absolutely, I'll tell you this, sports talk and TV would have ratings booms because every day, who's going to be the coach? Well, what's going on? There's going to be so much conversation about what happened. But me personally, I wouldn't want them to see him do it that way. I want them to see him finish through maybe to week 12 or 13, but I wouldn't do it right now.
Well, the one thing we know, and we talked about this now on the last couple shows, is Arthur Blank spoke to the AJC after the Houston game, and one of the things he referenced was Atlanta still hadn't played any division games. So even after losing to Arizona, Atlanta still hasn't played its division games. Now, if you look at the standings, Atlanta's 1-5, New Orleans is 5-1, despite the fact that, or even apart from the fact that Atlanta would be not predicted to beat New Orleans head-to-head, you're already, down 4 games in the division as it is before you play any of your division games. So Atlanta does not have a chance to win the division. Atlanta does not have a chance to make the playoffs. You've got, and I see the name Raheem Morris coming up in our comment section. You've got him that's been a head coach before. You've got Malarkey who's been a head coach before. You've got Dirk Cutter who's been a head coach before. I mean, the one thing that would be benefited by making a change in season, I think you touched on this, would be a good point. Falcons fans now could have the discussion of who the next coach would be without having to give you the caveat, and you'll hear me do it 1,000 times. I'll talk about potential coaching candidates, and I'll always have to say, because as of now it's factually accurate, if Atlanta does indeed make a change. So as of right now, every time we talk about Lincoln Riley or Mike McCarthy or whomever else, you always have to say that's in the event that Atlanta does decide to make a coaching change. At this point in time, I don't see how Atlanta has any choice to do anything but make that coaching change. But as long as Quinn's still employed, you still have to have that caveat every time you discuss it. So I do think Atlanta fans would benefit from being able to remove that layer of
negativity that's kind of like a dark cloud now that's hovering over,
and start talking openly about who's the kind of coach, the kind of coaching philosophy that could change this. But ultimately, what Atlanta might benefit from the most, even though it doesn't feel the best now, is, I mean, there are NFL teams openly tanking. There are NFL teams openly trying to compete for the very best draft pick they can get. I mean, part of the potential benefit of keeping Quinn employed is that you do keep pace and Tankapalooza a little bit. And I'm not being funny. As long as you got results like you're having right now, Atlanta's never going to drift too far away from maybe not being the number 1 overall pick, but certainly being close enough where in a draft that's going to include potential large number of future franchise quarterbacks, the value of the Falcons draft pick continues to be high as long as they keep doing what they did on Saturday, which is make a rookie quarterback look like Michael Vick or somebody.
I hear what you're saying about the benefits, and I understand how you feel with the fans because I feel the same way for the fans. But there's one thing I will say that I can see the benefit if he were to be dismissed is that it would instantly, from a player standpoint, it would kind of take pressure off of you that you can just go play because everybody's being evaluated. So when Dan Quinn's gone, all you got to do is what? Look down on the eye on the sky. Every individual is evaluated as a player. So I just think there is some benefits to it, and I'm never going to call for a guy to be fired. But as a player, sometimes you have to, kind of move that cloud a little bit to also see what you got there.
Yeah.
So to me, the Falcons need to see what do we really got.
Yeah.
Let's get out there. Let's see who other guys that can play. Let's put them in different situations, and let's just see if letting this guy go helps improve what we got, and we'll move forward.
David Diaz, hard words for Quinn and Dimitrov both. Derek Brown says, Eagles game, we were moving guys around and blitzing. They didn't know where the pressure was coming from. What changed? Why are we playing such a weak zone now compared to the Eagles game? I mean, did you see a difference what you saw versus Philadelphia, what you've seen the last couple of weeks? Is it the more mobile quarterback that not that Wentz is not mobile, but obviously Watson and Murray are way, way more mobile.
Right.
Is that the difference here?
Nah, I think that's fake news. I think that's something that the coaches are saying because they can't get pressure and they can't cover. The realism of it is the Falcons right now, they can't rush. The players that they drafted are not starters. The facts remain: Vic Beasley and Tack McKinley on the Philadelphia Eagles, they don't start. New Orleans Saints, they don't start. Let's start looking at it how it is. So the Falcons have deficiencies. Desmond Trufant, he's not a good player. He's always been what? A solid player, right? So even Ricardo Allen, I love Rico. Yeah, he's a dog, got the head buster, but he was he a fifth round pick? So I just think it has nothing to do with, I think the personnel doesn't fit the scheme because the personnel can't play. So a lot of teams play cover 2. A lot of teams play cover 3. But the final piece to this thing is, and we've talked about it forever, and it's not because I'm a pass rush guy, them dudes ain't rushing. These same different teams are sacking Kyler Murray. We act like all of a sudden because the organization acts like all of a sudden because now, we're going against running quarterbacks, we got to change to a 5-3. That's not true. That was not true. They didn't move to 5-3 because of that. So what's happening is other teams are sacking quarterback. Before we played against Deshaun Watson, I seen one guy got sacked 8 times. So I think that's an excuse.
Houston's offensive line has been terrible.
Yeah, that's an excuse. I mean, the guys ain't performing, right?
Yeah.
And then another part of it, let's go. So where are we at? No one's talking. And ultimately the assistants. I love the guys to death. But so the whole potpourri right now is not working. But I asked the question. The guys we got right now, they don't start in most teams. They're not actually starters. Debo, we'll see if he starts. Devondre, I love all you guys, but right now they're not playing like NFL starters. We have a lot of role players.
Tavares Christopher says Matt Ryan stares down receivers and forces throws, can't move. We've talked a lot about the issues with the Falcons' offensive line, how that may be impacting Matt Ryan. But, listen, you're going to talk about the totality of the season. Has been Ryan's best year. Offensively, Atlanta's left a lot to be desired. I don't know that you've got a whole lot of room to criticize Ryan on the offense on the basis of yesterday. Bad team they're playing against, but they played better yesterday.
Yeah, they played better yesterday, and Matt looked fantastic. The plays were there, and they made some good plays. But, Arizona, this wasn't exactly the Patrick Peterson-led Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
The Falcons did what they're supposed to do, and to me, that's also a glaring sign that something ain't right. We're happy that Matt Ryan had a great day versus Arizona, but last week we were criticizing him and the week before because of interceptions. So it's still, I'm not letting the offense off the hook. There have been times, this game they did good, but a couple of the games they did absolutely terrible. So, but the one thing that we continue to say is the Falcons' offense has been competitive most of the time. Matt has thrown too many interceptions, but the one thing we can say is the defense is not giving the offense as many possessions to do well. The Falcons did good yesterday, but overall, both of them still need work.
Murphy Campbell says it's the players' fault and 40% Quinn's fault for holding on to defensive players that should have been cut, like Vic and Trufant. Vic's $13 million this year, just imagine. And that's why in the larger scheme of things, we're talking about, in-game or in-season decisions, how it impacts Quinn and the Falcons on the field. But if you want to sort of pull back to 10,000 feet, the larger discussion around the organization, as the commenter said, you got some guys and some personnel decisions that are not panning out on the field. That's why one way or another, Thomas Dimitrov is not immune to this discussion either. We're dealing with Quinn more now because we're watching the on-field results week in and week out. But ultimately, if you want to start talking about the 2020, 2021, those future years of the Falcons, the guy making the personnel decisions in addition to Quinn's got to be a part of this discussion as well, and Thomas Dimitrov and what his role in this has been up to this point in time and what it's supposed to be going forward, if at all.
Great point. I tell you what needs to change, though, is a philosophy. Whether they get rid of him or not, and the only way to be able to change philosophy is get rid of him, There just needs to be a fresh start. There needs to be a fresh start. You got players. Now let's figure out another way of getting players now that fit these pieces and find some real centerpieces. I mean, we got these pieces we fitting around. You know what I mean? You got Deion, you got Grady. It's time to find a true superstar. Who are we kidding? Let's call a spade now with Falcon fans. And I'm not trying to be hard on the Falcons.
Yeah.
We don't have a superstar on our defense. I know Grady's a great player.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between.
I thought he had a very good game yesterday too.
Grady's a great player. But I'm talking about a unbelievable player that you build around. You understand what I'm saying? Looking at some of these teams, and it's hard to find J.J. Watts, right? But you got to maybe look for an Aaron Donald. You had a chance to drop him, Thomas. You didn't draft him. Okay, you had a chance. Thomas Dimitroff could have drafted Aaron Donald, right? You could have drafted Yanni. You could have got all these dudes, Calais Campbell in free agency. So I understand where you're putting your money at. But look at the pieces I just talked about just within itself on a defensive standpoint. I just need a Jesse Tuggle, an absolute enforcer that people fear. When you go into the Falcon game now, Grady's the one. All we hear is, we hear about the Falcons defense. They're not doing anything, but we got Grady.
Yeah.
Grady is the best thing we got on defense, and Grady's a great NFL player. But Lord have mercy, who are we kidding? We say Grady. We have 10 other guys, and every week I listen to all the Falcon fans make even more excuses because they want the fact that we're actually in bigger trouble than we actually think because all we say is Grady. Think about all the viewers out there when everything you read, they always say, but we got Grady. But what about all the other cats?
10 more guys on that defense.
10 more guys, man. So that's a huge disappointment for me that some fans are still making excuses. We are deeper in debt, so to speak, than they really think we are.
Well, a lot of folks agree with you. Sharon Ballard in our comment section talking about the idea of no superstar on defense. A lot of folks agreeing with you on what you've said there about that point. Matt Modlin, much the same way, that they agree with you about the absence of that superstar on defense. And it also kind of reminds me of something that Dwayne Coleman said in our Facebook comment section a little earlier, is that when you look on the offensive side of the ball, you got some very expensive players right now. I mean, listen, everybody loves Julio, but Julio's expensive. Ryan's expensive. Devontae Freeman's expensive. Alex Mack's not cheap. Calvin Ridley's not cheap. When you've got that many expensive players combined with that many holes still in the offensive line, you got spots you don't feel great about. I totally agree with you in terms of true game-changing difference makers on defense. You're really missing that guy for the most part. Coupling that with a bunch of expensive players that drain your salary cap, that's a bad combination. That's why Dimitrov's going to be in blank socks, I believe, before it's all said and done, too.
Well, I agree. And I think one of the things with Mr. TD, I was at the Senior Bowl where they told me that, what's the guy's big guy? He got drafted in the second round in 2013. I'm sorry, it'll come to me. But I was there and read in the paper when they said that there was a guy better than Aaron Donald that went in this draft. And leave it at that. They could have drafted Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
They should have drafted Aaron Donald.
Yeah. Certainly be nice to have
no,
him right
but
now.
this was not just we don't know much about him. This was he's on our list.
Yeah.
He is the person that we're thinking of. Aaron Donald. So I go back to that. So people, this is not the same Aaron Donald we're talking about today. This is a guy in college that hadn't won Defensive Player of the Year and all that stuff.
Yeah, a little more of a project, at least
and
at the time.
They went for a second rounder that was a defensive D tackle. I think of his name. He got cut twice, got kicked off the team, got jammed. Don't worry about it. Nonetheless.
I'm too old to remember.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to let you hear from Dan Quinn in just a moment. His thoughts on how things go down yesterday. It's AJC Falcons News Now. My name is Brandon Adams. This is the former Atlanta Falcon Chuck Smith. And, of course, if you want to follow everything that happened in Arizona on Sunday, best way to do that is become an AJC subscriber. Now, when you use the website, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now, as a special thank you to your subscription, you get this officially branded Atlanta Falcons cooler. And this is a nice little thing. So I know a lot of you went over to somebody's house to watch the game on Sunday. This cooler, pack yourself a little beverage or two and take that on over there. Looks great with the Falcons logo. Of course, the AJC, proud partners of the Atlanta Falcons. And I know a lot of folks around here hoping to see Atlanta playing better at some time soon. But while it is what it is, of course, the coverage you get the AJC is going to be top-notch. A couple ways for you to get those subscriptions. You can get the daily e-paper delivered right there to your device. You can get e-paper plus Sunday home delivery, 7-day home delivery. All of that available to you, lots of different choices. And when you sign up for any of those subscriptions, you're going to get the officially branded Atlanta Falcons AJC cooler as a thank you to you for being an AJC subscriber. Check out his website, subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. A lot of your – go ahead.
I couldn't even finish the game. I'm going to tell you how disappointed I was in the game. So I started watching the game. The Falcons started getting beat down. So look, let me tell you what I did. This is how bad it got, Brandon. I didn't watch the game. I waited till the game was over and watched it. Afterwards, I did like this. Well, I'm Siri, who won the Falcons game?
Yeah, you wanted to know beforehand.
I was look, man, I couldn't even watch the game. I had to wait. I had to hit Siri to find out what happened, man. And so I went back and watched it. But I was very disappointed. My son is sitting there watching. Dad, I understand cover 3. Why are they sitting back? Why aren't they playing the sticks when the Falcons one time they were too far back in Arizona? It really is vanilla. I understand. I'm a little disappointed. I just hate it for the fans who are just thinking that we're on the brinks of a Super Bowl, and now look where we are again.
But do you know who looked good on the weekend? Lincoln Riley. Sooners got to win. He has made another quarterback into a big-time guy. Did it with Baker, did it with Murray, doing it now with Jalen Hurts. And
I'm in.
See the way that Hurts played in Alabama, that's no easy thing. Stinking for Lincoln.
I'm in. You know why I'm in? Because the offense that Arizona ran, they did plays against the Falcons I had never seen.
Yeah. Kingsbury was a bad Big 12 coach. And you want to tell me that the NFL's not the Big 12 now? All that stuff that Kingsbury is running yesterday. All those crazy rub routes and
that was crazy.
Clever annex. You put guys on one side, a little decoy, and do something on the other side.
They had one time 4 wides on the right, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'd never seen some of the plays they ran. If the Falcons, I would love this, and I was thinking that same way. As soon as the game was going on, I started by thinking Lincoln Riley. If the Falcons could do some of that, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be pretty incredible to watch the Falcons with the passing element of what Arizona did yesterday.
And you got to be careful here. Now, we're going to get to the scores later on from Sunday. Atlanta's about to have some more competition in this stinking for Lincoln race because you know who's pretty bad right now?
Who?
Dallas Cowboys. And there's always been these rumors, and who knows if internet rumors are true or not. Nobody knows for sure. But there have always been these rumors that maybe Dallas might be interested in Riley, that Riley, for whatever reason, might be interested in the Cowboys. There's already been published reports that Riley would not be interested in the Washington job. The Dallas job, a little bit different scenario. Dak Prescott, maybe the kind of quarterback he feels like he can work with. So this is all conjecture, of course. Falcons don't even have a coaching opening, neither do the Cowboys. But in the stinking for Lincoln race, I think the Cowboys are officially on the clock because they are not good.
And if I'm if I'm Lincoln, Riley, man, I got to go to Dallas.
No, come on, don't say that.
I'm a Falcon fan.
Atlanta's got more offensive pieces. Atlanta's got more offensive pieces.
Dallas has an offensive line, number one, but here's the biggest key component to me why I'm going to Dallas over Atlanta. Dak Prescott, he fits the offense. That Ryan can't run those RPOs.
No. I don't think so. I mean, I know what you're saying, but
what?
You don't look. To run Lincoln Riley's offense, you don't need a big offensive line. That's the whole point.
But you need a quarterback that can move.
I don't know about that necessarily. I don't know about that. You can do the little pop pass thing where you fake the handoff and dump over the linebackers.
You got to still be a little bit of a threat. Baker Mayfield was a little threat.
Man, don't rain on my parade. Lincoln Riley. Shouts out to you. Ryan and Julio and Ridley, they're waiting on you. They need you. By the way, speaking of the Falcons' current coach, Dan Quinn, here's what he said about the loss on Sunday.
I told the team I was proud of the fight they had shown to get back into the game and have a chance for us to win it in the fourth quarter. I thought we put ourselves in too big a hole at the half to have to come back and fight, so we certainly can't let that happen. I was pleased with the guys' effort, energy to put it all in this week out on the road to try and find the performance we're looking for. There were some good individual performances, but it was not enough to get the job done tonight. So we got work to do, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Yeah, so at this point in time, I'm not sure what he's supposed to say. I mean, no one thinks Quinn's a bad guy. No one thinks that Quinn's necessarily embarrassing the organization. Fans are disappointed with the results, but I mean, he's trying his best. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like no one thinks that Quinn's not giving effort, and I don't think that anybody thinks the Falcons themselves aren't giving effort for Quinn. They're just not doing well. Do you see effort as a problem? I don't see effort being a problem from Quinn. I mean, I think he's still coaching. I don't see effort being a problem from the players necessarily. I just think they're in the wrong position.
Well, that's part effort. Okay. Effort is the ability to do what you're taught. I mean, you got to give maximum effort, not only on the field, but also mentally. That's part of it. The mental part of it in the meeting rooms and then translating that onto the football field.
Yeah.
Now, I watched the first, I don't know whether it was the first drive, and I seen them throw a swing pass in the Falcons. This dude, the receiver, ran through 4 Falcons.
I did see that.
They were jogging to the ball. All right, on goal line, they blocked down on Grady. They blocked down on Tack. Isaiah Oliver is supposed to step up. He didn't give effort. He went down and cringed. I showed it to my wife 3 times. So I'm not saying overall effort. I'm not questioning their heart. But there's the difference between guys that are playing to destroy you and guys just tiptoeing. I mean, did I see something? Did I not see what I thought I saw?
Yeah, well,
the guy broke 4 tackles on the Falcons in the first drive and set the tempo.
Mark Barron and Jamel Mahoney agree with you. They think I'm being too easy on Quinn right there. I guess my point is, there's nothing I hate worse than having to listen to a guy do what is obviously a lame duck press conference. At this point in time, this is a lame duck press conference. This is, I'm just here so I don't get fined type stuff. You know what I'm saying? The rules require you to speak to the media. There is nothing else left to say. You have tried everything you can try. Right. Nothing works. I guess what I'm saying is, I feel bad for Quinn that he's even in that spot. So on the one hand, going ahead and making the move against him and removing him from the coaching job would at least be merciful enough that he's not having to sit there and be a part of a post-game press conference where it is painfully obvious he has no answers for anything that's wrong.
And I guess from that standpoint, it's a business. Dan Quinn has been paid very well. But also, I guess I look at it from this standpoint too. You are who you are, right? Mm-hmm. You're the head coach, now you're the coordinator, and you are not a good coordinator. I think he's a better head coach. I think the mistake he made was becoming the coordinator. But Marquand Manuel got canned, publicly got embarrassed, okay? Bryant Young got ran out of here. Mm-hmm. Brian Cox got ran out of here. The coordinator, Richard Smith, got ran out of here, publicly embarrassed. So I really don't have sympathy for Dan. It's a business. Keith Armstrong ran out of here. But think about this. They didn't just get fired. They got publicly embarrassed the way they ran out of here. Yeah. Assistant coaches don't have the right to come and defend themselves. Dan Quinn, you get what you deserve. You're just like the rest of them. If you get fired, I don't see why people feel sorry. It's a business. But those other guys, they got publicly crucified. Right now, Dan Quinn is at least getting a chance to go out with respect if that's the way it happens.
We're going to talk about the Falcons offense and hear from Matt Ryan in a moment. It's AJC Falcons News Now. My name's Bryant Adams. This is the former Falcon Chuck Smith. We're sponsored by Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great and it's just 96 calories. Before we do the offensive stuff, let's hear from a few more folks on our comment section. By the way, we've been on Facebook since the beginning, AJC Falcons News Now on Facebook. We do the show every Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. Big news, though, growing by leaps and bounds in that AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite, also available on YouTube now.
Okay.
Is AJC Falcons News Now is the name of the YouTube page? So if you want to watch on YouTube, AJC Falcons News Now. We stream live on YouTube now every single day as well. So I'm really excited about that. A chance for some of you to get involved. I know for a lot of you that consume some of the other video products we do around here, you like the YouTube format or the interface. So YouTube now for the program. So y'all check that out. Antonio Robinson said the Quinn experiment ended at 28-3, and for a lot of folks, it's always going to come back to that Atlanta never shook off that Super Bowl loss, the worst loss, and I don't say this lightly, that any professional sports team may have ever suffered. The Falcons in that Super Bowl.
You mean the history of sports?
In the history of American sports.
Baseball, all the way
I don't know that anyone's ever suffered an individual game loss.
That's strong.
As bad as that one was for the Falcons, and maybe it's just one of those things that you're just the well is just poisoned after that. Maybe and maybe we're only now fully coming to grips with just how true that really is.
Because every time we play a game, that comes up every week. Mm-hmm. Every week, but
yeah, people are not even Falcons fans or Patriots fans joke about that. That's one thing for Saints fans to kind of rub it in Atlanta's face, but that's a part of American culture now. I mean, it's the kind of thing that that unfortunately, Falcons are famous for. Probably infamous is the better word. And Quinn he's got that DNA all over him.
And even the next year after the Falcons come out, go to the playoffs, and I'm like, okay. So, but the thing that's, when you talk about, I'm not getting into 28-3, this nucleus is so good, in my opinion, if put in the right positions. If you were to make a transition, I think your expectations are still, we need to try to get to the Super Bowl. Yeah. I don't think that changes no matter who your coach is.
Casey Matthews says the Bills lost 4 straight Super Bowls. Apparently he thinks that's worse, which is a fair conversation. Josh Tanzer says, why are you guys, he's talking to other commenters, why are you guys hating on Ryan? he's not the problem with this team. He's going to be our quarterback for several more years. One way or another, that last part's true. Ryan's not going anywhere. Julio's not going anywhere. Big-time investments on offense not going anywhere. That's the one reason why, and it probably seems a little bit ironic, just given the fact that the Falcons are going to end up making a coaching change because of its bad defense. But if Atlanta doesn't hire an offensive-minded coach to replace Quinn, they're making a gigantic mistake because you have got this nucleus. You've spent big bucks on them. They're the faces of the franchise. They've got a few years left in their prime. One way or another, you got to figure out what they're capable of doing. So if you're right, and either Lincoln Riley wants to stay at Oklahoma or wants to take a different NFL job, you got to find somebody like him or someone innovative and creative similar to him to come here and get the best you got. Because the story for the next 3 years or 4 years, however long, one way or another, is can you find a way to still use the prime years that Matt Ryan has? Because there is nothing worse, more shameful than watching him running for his life, putting his helmet back on straight in a game like Sunday that's ultimately inconsequential on what is a bad football team.
I like the pieces. Like the offensive lineman, Lindstrom, I know he'll get back. He's hurt at guard. But McGarry, I like what I saw. You understand? I like the Brown kids showing some toughness yesterday. The offense, they're fine. But I never thought I'd say this. Man, I need me a Kyle Shanahan protege.
Oh, yeah.
Who's on?
Well, J.J. Lovelace says the same thing. He says after the Super Bowl, this team went downhill. Shanahan was the guy. Look at San Francisco. Yeah, look at them right now. They are running a very impressive offense, and that's not Big 12-style offense. They got fullbacks in the game. They got 22 personnel on a lot of snaps. They're doing some power stuff, but they throw out of it. Shanahan's just a smart coach. I mean, the results speak for themselves, and it's a shame because you had him in. Obviously, in retrospect, it's easier to say, well, you should have kept Shanahan and got rid of Quinn. But no one would have done that at the time. But it's obvious now that he's just a better coach. He's a better coach by a long shot.
Well, maybe because it's an offensive guys league now. It's an offensive coaches league, kind of like you've been talking about, B. But look, Kyle Shanahan, when he was here, the best thing at that time was for him to get out of here. So we can't forget that. Remember all the negativity with the 28-3. He has a part in it.
People were mad at him at the time.
People were mad at him at the time. So it's easy to have revisionist history. Say, oh, yeah, well, we wish you had kept him. Now, let's move forward to the Falcons right now. Yes, we need an infusion of creativity on offense. I like it. Give me some of that Arizona. I'll take some of that. Give me a little bit of that Kyle Shanahan, right? Give me some Lincoln Riley, some of that creativity, a little bit of a mixture here and there, right? Screens, all those different things. But what we definitely have to do is they got to figure out, until the Falcons figure this out now, because I like what the Saints are doing. Yeah. The Saints are winning with what? Defense, now that the quarterback got hurt.
Yeah.
So let's look at it like this. What if Matt Ryan just said, what if Matt Ryan got hurt? We would absolutely be in a whole lot of different kind of trouble because the defense is suspect.
Yeah.
That defense needs to be fixed. There needs to be a priority on the defense. We know what our offense is better equipped to adjust to whoever we get. But our defense right now has to be fixed because if we lose any of those guys on offense, you're talking about getting a 50 stack put up on us every week.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, what New Orleans is doing right now with Bridgewater, not that he's a bad quarterback, but what they're doing with him in place of Drew Brees because of that defense is pretty impressive. Charles Weaver, though, does ask, okay, so if the idea is you want an offensive-minded head coach to eventually replace Dan Quinn, who would the candidates be? And, I'll keep talking about Lincoln Riley till I'm blue in the face. Eric Bieniemy's name's come up here, who's doing some interesting work with Kansas City right now. But let me ask you this. Would you be interested in a guy like Mike McCarthy, who won a Super Bowl in Green Bay, but there are plenty of Packers fans that weren't always in love with Mike McCarthy. You can have him right now. Is McCarthy a name that you would want, former Packers head coach?
I want old school. I'm fine with that.
That's as old school as you get now.
But I'm fine with it, Andy Reid. But the smart thing Andy Reid finally did is what? Stop making his own being an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Andy stopped that. He brought in Eric Bieniemy. I'm cool with Mike McCarthy. But smart coaches don't repeat what got him fired. Mm-hmm. So McCarthy, if you're going to become a head coach again, come in there and get somebody that's more progressive, that understands how to adapt to the new rules, put these guys in position to make plays. I'm cool with McCarthy. But the offensive coordinator they got, I want him with some swagger, I want him intelligent, and I want him not afraid to take calculated risks, but not be dumb and do things like throw the ball when you should run it in the Super Bowl and lose a 28-3 lead.
Jay Doc also mentioned Byron Leftwich, who's an offensive coordinator in the NFL now. Josh McDaniels is a name that's going to come up a little bit at least. But I said this before, I don't trust McDaniels. What McDaniels did to the Indianapolis Colts, if he'll do that to Indianapolis, I can't trust McDaniels. I can't.
I don't like McDaniels. He's not on my list.
I mean, it certainly finished badly for him in Denver, and maybe McDaniels thinks that he's going to one day replace Bill Belichick or whatever. one way or another. I don't think I can trust him. If I was the Falcons, I would not trust him.
Well, I really don't actually have a list. I said he's not on my list, but I don't really have a list.
King J says, what about Lovie Smith? I mean, I can't go defensive guy.
Hey, we ain't going no Lovie. We ain't messing with Lovie.
Guy.
Lovie, he need to worry about Illinois.
Yeah, exactly.
He need to get Illinois right.
Didn't they keep it close with Michigan on Saturday? Am I wrong about that? Was that a close game or not? I don't know.
Close, but another loss.
All right. Anyway, we're talking about the Falcons here. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Falcons offense, a little better on Saturday. In fact, let me give you a couple of the stats here.
Falcons balled out yesterday.
Yeah, 31 first downs, 440 yards. They actually 444 yards. They actually won the total yardage battle. They rushed nearly 4 yards per clip, had more passing yards than the Cardinals there as well. The Cardinals are a bad team, but they did win the game on Sunday. So Atlanta, not a bad day offensively. Here's what Ryan said about the game when it was over.
Not obviously where we want to be, but our mindset has to be on where we want to go. And so we'll get some rest after this trip back and get back to it Wednesday and try and clean up the handful of things that we can clean up. But we're definitely disappointed and frustrated with not getting the job done.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, Ryan much the same way here, kind of saying some of the same stuff we've heard him say before. But yesterday, maybe for the first time all season almost, you can actually say that Atlanta gave its team a real chance to win offensively, and you're going to hear this in the national media. I think you're going to hear from Chuck and me both. Falcons offense not the reason why this team lost yesterday.
No, it's not. And I had that feeling, Brandon. In the end, okay, we kicked this field goal with Matt Bryant. Everything seemed to go the way that what the Falcons were going to win.
Right.
I had that feeling that Falcons were going to win because the offense couldn't be stopped. I thought the Falcons did well yesterday. I love watching Devontae Freeman run. He looked like the old Freeze somewhat. But
19 carries, 88 yards for him, averaging 4.6 there. I mean, different kind of offense when you've got him involved.
Yeah, and you're exactly right when they can run the ball. But I'm going to tell you right now, one of my down low MVPs on the quiet tip, if there's such a thing, I don't really have an MVP, but let me tell you, Caleb McGarry, the offensive tackle, is doing an excellent job. I watched him against Chandler Jones yesterday. I watched him against Suggs. I watched him against J.J. Watt. He's the real deal. And now the MVP right now, the offense for me, Matt Ryan can always get it. It ain't Julio. Austin Hooper right now is the best tight end, I believe, in the NFC. Mm-hmm. Show me one better. I watch him each and every week. He gets the check downs, but the catch he made yesterday.
Kittle's pretty good.
Austin Hooper right now, in my opinion, that's someone else's opinion. Yeah. You can't do no better than Hooper?
He's good. No, he's good.
Balling.
He's good. Walter McNeil brings a pretty good point about the coaching situation. If you do make the change, and then you have to use that caveat for now, if you do make the change, do they have to go with more of a hard-nosed coach than a what we think of as Quinn being kind of more of a player-friendly coach? To me, all I care about is, can you come up here and draw up 35 points a game? That's literally all I care about. But there's going to be a case to be made that some of the slogans and some of the brotherhood stuff, maybe you've got to go the other direction. Do you need a more hard-nosed guy, or can you satisfy that in the assistant ranks?
No, you don't need a hard-nosed guy because the collective bargaining agreement gave the players the power. Hard-nosed coaches can't run no players. Think about what you just seen in Antonio Brown. Just if he wouldn't even taken it that far. You got players clowning coaches. Star players control everything, and this is the mama's boy era. These cats, man, you get a hard-nosed coach, they even act like they want to yell at the player whining and crying. But they also got leverage. So to me, you don't need no hard-nosed coach. You got to have a coach like Quinn who can manage this new generation. Hard-nosed coach is going like McCarthy. You getting ran up out there. Andy Reid has made some changes. So now you can't bring in the hard-nosed coach because they ain't there no more. Because guess what? The players run the league now. Yeah. Coaches come and go. So think about it right now. What Q gonna do? No matter what, think about it like this. Even when Q said his first slogan when he got here, if Julio would have came and said, "Coach, man, I ain't really with them slogans," guess what would have happened? Think about it. I mean, what could Q have done? Hard-nosed coach is dead, man. You got to play the game like Q did if you're going to hang around. These young boys ain't playing. They run the house.
Antonio Robbins says not that much different than the regular workforce either, which is probably a pretty good point. By the way, look at Matt Jennings on Twitter shouting out the stinking for Lincoln.
He stole that from you, bro.
Well, listen.
Or did you steal it from someone too?
No, I didn't steal it from anybody. Okay. I do my own material, but
I
look at this as a different kind of thing right now. I look at this as a message that's getting out. What started as kind of a small grassroots effort, all of a sudden now is taking shape on social media. Stinking for Lincoln is on its way, and I'm going to continue to get the word out on that. So y'all do your part, share it on social media. let's get the folks talking about it, because I personally think, and I know you disagree with this, and this I'm being serious on. Now, some of this I'm kidding about. This I'm being serious. There's not a reason in the world, if Lincoln Riley wants to coach in the NFL, there's not a reason in the world why Atlanta wouldn't be just as good a choice for him as anywhere else is. Atlanta's a college football town. They would love to have a former college football coach coaching here. I know you say, well, Big 12 style coach needs more than mobile quarterback. The fact is these guys have ability to adapt to their personnel just a little bit. It's not like Jared Goff's running around all over the place. Look what Sean McVay's doing with him, a coach in a very similar vein to this. Atlanta's got the offensive pieces in place that could benefit from a sharp offensive mind. I'm not going to guarantee that Riley's going to be great, because I can't guarantee anybody is. But I can guarantee you this, there's no better person Atlanta could hire. Based on what we know right now, there's not a better person Atlanta could hire.
All right, well, let me start at where you first started at, okay? The first thing you said is that, well, I know you don't agree, but Atlanta's a good place for Lincoln Riley.
It is.
The only reason I said it wasn't because you threw out there the Dallas Cowboys and I disagreed. Yeah. I like Dak Prescott, so Atlanta's a great place for Lincoln Riley. But if I'm Lincoln, if I got $10 million here, if I got $10 million here, and I got the young quarterback who can run, Jerry Jones, Dallas defense is better, I'm going to take that unless Arthur throws 20, but this is a good place for him. I'm just clowning a little bit, but Atlanta would be a good place.
All right, but let me be serious on this one more time. Here's the one difference between, I think, Atlanta and Dallas. Now, this is obviously all conjecture. Y'all are smart enough to know that. Here's the one reason why I'd rather coach in Atlanta than coach in Dallas. Jerry Jones is a meddling personnel man as an owner. Arthur Blank, maybe sometimes, but you know, he's let his guys kind of run that organization. Now, Jones has won Super Bowls, Blank has not, but if you give me the choice of working for and in this stage, both Mr. Blank and Mr. Jones are starting to get a little bit older, and so in terms of, you know, evaluating their influence over the organization, that becomes a bit more difficult to do. But if you gave me the choice of which guy I'd rather work for, I'd rather work for Blank than Jones, I believe. I would. I mean, there are a lot of people that have not loved the Jerry Jones experience.
Okay.
Has anybody not liked working for Blank? Now, the results haven't always been great, but has anybody not liked work? I mean, you like Blank, right?
I love Blank, but how you know who don't like Blank?
That's good.
You act like you know everybody that works for Blank. And like everybody hates Jerry. Well, clearly people like Jerry too, but again, I'm not going to keep going back and forth. I totally agree with what you're saying.
I get what you're saying too. Let me change the subject on something else for a minute, and we'll get some more comments before we get out of here. And maybe this matters, maybe it doesn't. But Atlanta thought that it could move on from Matt Bryant, then figured out that it couldn't move on from Matt Bryant. Then they bring Matt Bryant back, and Matt Bryant, with the game on the line, missed the extra point yesterday. I actually thought Michael Cunningham from the AJC did a good way of kind of summarizing kind of where the Falcons are on this after Bryant let them down with the missed PAT yesterday. Can we show the Cunningham quote? He says, remember, the Falcons released Matt Bryant, who's 44 years old, after last season because they feared he would slip. Now, they must hope they weren't right. So, which was the right decision? The one the Falcons initially made to get rid of Bryant, or the one the Falcons made after that to bring him back? This is another thing that makes Atlanta look just sort of haphazard, but the fact that they've kind of now been wrong on both sides of the Matt Bryant issue.
I understand. I think they're on the right side on this one, Brandon. I think the Falcons brought him back. He was a better, option for them. Now, the kick, that was flukish. I mean, that's a chip shot for this guy. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was like a 50-yard kick, I'd be like, oh, well, bad mistake. They don't have a kicker that
He's 44 now, though. 44 is not young.
Yeah, but it's a chip shot for him. It's not like it was about power. It was about, more whatever, a technical flaw.
Sure, I understand.
But the crazier point for me is that are people trying to blame Matt Schaub and the new holder. I
don't think it's Schaub's fault.
But people are saying they're trying to find that reason, so to speak. But I don't see it. Again, just unbelievable kick. You remember? I don't know if you remember years ago when was '94, the game June Jones got fired with the Falcons for Falcons. People who've been around the Falcons. Morton Anderson slipped and missed a kick against Jacksonville. Right.
Essentially a Hall of essentially a Hall of Fame kicker, and he just slipped down.
Yeah, that's flukish, man. I mean, Matt Bryant makes that all day, every day, but we're talking about Matt Bryant when even though the defense was a hot mess.
Well,
Matt shouldn't even got there.
And something else we can talk about, and J.J. Green mentioned this in our Facebook comment section. I'm surprised this hasn't come up a little bit more. bit of an officiating thing from yesterday. You know, the fourth down conversion from Kyler Murray.
Big issues.
Yeah,
big issues.
I'm surprised Falcons. Maybe it's just an issue of they're a little bit more worried about the future direction of their organization. I'm surprised we haven't heard a little bit more complaining from Falcons fans about what were some kind of questionable officiating calls.
Well, I'm going to complain for you guys, the Falcon fans, since I can reach all y'all. The refereeing yesterday sucked in the Falcon game. It affected the Falcons. It took points off the board. It helped momentum. There were a few things even on the hold, so I'm going to speak for all of us, all right, if I can. If you want me to say that for you, the referees yesterday missed 3 major calls. They should have went to Falcons. And the one on the end zone, that was a fumble.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there, as soon as it happened, it's a fumble.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Terrible decision by the referees.
And if you're watching that, you know, Perea, the guy in New York, it's like, I don't see how they, you know, ruled this the way that he did.
But he cleaned it up in the end.
They came back and defended his referee. Yeah, it's like these former referees that do like the referee evaluations, none of these guys ever say a bad thing about other officials. And like, so he comes running back on, like they very awkwardly throw back to the studio so Pereira can say,
it's inconclusive.
Maybe I did see something. Fox doesn't have a single replay that proves this, but Pereira's not going to just, you know, throw one of his guys under the bus. That drives me crazy more than anything else, the way these former officials stick up for the current guys.
It's just inconclusive. So
Yeah.
you say, well, maybe on the other side of when he, remember on the goal line, maybe when he rolled his butt over, the knee might have hit. Well, we ain't see it.
Yeah, you got to. If that's true, then show me any video that proves that.
Bad calls.
Show me any
no question.
video.
The Falcons were hurt yesterday by bad referee.
King J says the refs were terrible, just like the replacement refs. By the way, one more thing on the Bryant miss. Peter King, made a long-time NFL writer, used to work for Sports Illustrated, Monday Morning Quarterback. I guess now running for Pro Football Talk, which honestly before today I didn't even know. On the basis of the Bryant PAT, he says, Falcons' most disappointing team in the league this year due to moments like this. Atlanta, your most disappointing NFL team? I know you're most disappointed in them because you're a former Falcons player. Is this the most disappointing team in the NFL?
As a player and a fan, yes. I picked the Falcons to get to the Super Bowl. I didn't know if they'd win it, but I had the Falcons make it to the Super Bowl because you heard me, before we started this show, I would say, I know what the DNA of these guys are. I actually know these dudes.
Yeah.
I know what Devondre's capabilities are. I know, especially in the front seven, I know Grady. I know, and I'm not saying this to name drop. It is what it is. These are family guys that I've been around, I've trained, but it ain't working. So it's just disappointing. So yeah, from my standpoint as a team, not individuals, but as a team of individuals, yes, I'm disappointed.
By the way,
no question.
We got all kinds of YouTube comments over here. Cody Paul checking in, Anthony Wright checking in.
What's up, Cody? Welcome, Anthony.
FCP Fishing checking in. Falcons, Hawks, Braves fan extraordinaire. Prince Ward checking in. My bad, y'all. We just got started on this thing. I didn't know we had so many people watching on YouTube. I would have been saying hello to you guys.
Turn up.
Hey, thanks for being with us on YouTube. I'll do a better job on Friday of reading more of your YouTube comments on this. You know who is in the conversation, though, for most disappointing teams in the NFL? Now, Dallas, potentially belongs there as well. You know who else is in that conversation?
Who?
The team the Falcons play this upcoming weekend.
Rams?
The LA Rams.
Yeah. Jared Goff has looked terrible.
Sunday is a pretty interesting game. Now, for Atlanta, it's basically, start thinking about the future. But for LA needs this game bad. Otherwise, now there's no Rams fans in LA, so they don't care. But Rams need this thing bad. Otherwise, there are going to be a lot of tough questions to ask about, Sean McVay, the scruffy beard and the abs and everything else. Maybe he's not quite as smart as we first thought he was.
I know, and when you look at their defense, it's really incredible what Wade Phillips and those guys aren't doing. They have personnel. They're like the Falcons somewhat with, that Aaron Donald guy on another level. They're not reaching their potential offensively. What a mess, Todd Gurley's been. He's been injured. There's been question his heart. Sean McVay, the offense ain't working. Jared Goff is kind of taking a step back. Very disappointing also. But I'm going to tell you another team that I'm disappointed in. The LA Chargers.
Oh, they're terrible.
I was shocked watching Pittsburgh absolutely punk them last night.
Yeah.
I mean, they look terrible. I mean, this is a team that a lot of people picked to possibly come out the AFC. Those are two teams. But now on the other end, man, the San Francisco 49ers.
Very impressive.
Look, that division within itself, the San Francisco 49ers, the Seattle Seahawks.
Great call.
Oof, watch out.
Let me give you one comment on YouTube from Falcons, Hawks, Braves fan extraordinaire. He says about the game on Sunday that it shouldn't have even come down to the refs. The Falcons are a superior team to the Cards. They were the point spread favorite going into the game. And I think the commenter here brings up a pretty good point why this loss feels different than any loss the Falcons have suffered up to this point in time. You get blown out by Houston, but Houston may win the AFC South. Jacksonville's good, but Houston's pretty good. The Tennessee thing was pretty bad at home, admittedly, but But Arizona is a bad team. And at one point in time, they were a really bad team. When you kind of go out there and lose to another bad team, this feels different than some of the losses we've seen Atlanta suffer. This feels like the kind of thing that's difficult to come back from.
Yeah, I agree. But I've been there. So let me speak from the player perspective. I've actually lost in Arizona, and no matter when they're good or bad, it's Arizona. I mean, you put your head over your head, you come back, you come through the back door of the house, Arizona, and then when you look at it specifically from this team, you got a coach that just got there this college, right? You got a makeshift defense full of guys that really are just on the last end. Mm-hmm. They really are. Their best cornerback wasn't there in Patrick Peterson. You got a team that the quarterback hasn't hardly did anything except one game, and he's young, and you know what I mean? You got an old receiver. And think about this from Arizona. They blew up the team last year. They blew up. The organization said, you know what? We're going to get rid of our first-round pick. We're going to send him off to Miami, and we're going to take a gamble and bring in this short cat that no one believes in, put him in court. They blew up their franchise.
Yeah.
Now here we are starting our season off. I'm the fool sitting up on the big chair talking about we're going to the Super Bowl. So I'm not the only dumb, not dumb people, but dumb football guesser.
Right.
I'm one of the many that sat here and said the Falcons are going to the Super Bowl. And we just lost to a team that blew up their franchise last year. When you get rid of your number one quarterback, they were starting from scratch, but clearly we're actually further behind than they are.
All right, a couple quick comments, then we're going to get ready to wrap things up. EJ Bias disagreeing with me and what I've said about the offensive-minded coach. He says, Falcons need to maybe look into hiring a guy like Dennis Allen, a great defensive coach, bring him in here. Don Grimsley, not optimistic with the Falcons' chance against the Rams on Sunday. King J also kind of funny, saying that this loss hurts the Falcons. We've got more talent than Arizona. Most Falcons fans probably agree with that. Casey Matthews says the Cardinals had not scored more than 30 points since 2017. Got it against Atlanta on Sunday. Also, Blake Robinson in our Facebook comment section said that you want to win your fantasy matchup this upcoming weekend. He says start Jared Goff against the Falcons on Sunday. That's how bad it's gotten in some regards. All right, before we get ready to go, it's AJC Falcons News Now. Obviously, when you become an AJC subscriber, get all the great Falcons coverage of the AJCs. A special thank you. Get this Atlanta Falcons branded cooler. Of course, the AJC, proud partners of the Atlanta Falcons. Subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now. That's the website to go to. I know we've talked about a lot of these NFL teams already. Let's just take a quick gander at the scores from this weekend, and we'll see if there's anything we have not mentioned we probably should have. Carolina, man, I'm telling you, I think that's a pretty good team right now. Baltimore beat Cincinnati. I am not sure about the Ravens. A lot of hype for them off the beginning of the year. Frankly, a lot of hype for Lamar Jackson off the beginning of the year. I'm not as sure about Jackson as some other people are, nor am I as sure about the Ravens as some people are.
Well, I like Jackson, the Ravens. I look at the division they're playing in. Pittsburgh, a little suspect. Cleveland, suspect. I think they're going to win it, but the question is, will he be able to throw? But in Baltimore, it's going to be pretty cold and windy, so running might do him pretty good. He's young now. He can take some hits.
I agree with your point on Seattle. Russell Wilson having an amazing season for the Seahawks. That's a fun team to watch and one of the top teams in the NFC. New Orleans defense, beating Jacksonville on the road like that, no small feat. And Saints defense really getting it done right now. How about Kansas City losing 2 in a row to AFC South teams, dropping one of the Texans yesterday? Some suspicion that there may be something going on with the Chiefs, and now it's more than suspicion. You'll start to really question that. And how about Washington winning the Tank for Tua Bowl 17-16 over Miami? Or should we say that Miami wins because they find a way to stay winless? Minnesota, that's a pretty good NFC South, or I should say NFC team. That Week 1 win against the Falcons, no fluke for them. They're a pretty good team.
Nah, Philly, they're a little suspect.
That may be true. Rams lose to the 49ers. We've already talked about that. We like San Francisco right now. Denver started to come on and play a little bit better now, getting a shutout of the Titans.
And Tennessee are a hot mess.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, man, I'm about to cut him off my fantasy team. I don't see it changing.
How about Dallas, as we said before, losing to the Jets? That is not a good situation.
That was ugly.
Not a good situation there.
Ugly.
And, of course, tonight it's Detroit and Green Bay, worth paying attention to. All right. We appreciate all of you being a part of AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite today. And we really appreciate Miller Lite bringing it all to us, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great. It's just 96 calories. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to come back on Friday at 1 p.m. We'll talk a lot more about everything that happens with the Falcons this week. what we can expect against the Rams on Sunday and maybe what the future direction of this organization is. Between now and then, it'd be a huge help to us if you would share the show, let folks know we're out here and we're doing this, subscribe to the YouTube page, and just be back ready to talk Falcons football again on Friday. Before we go, though, Chuck Smith always does something really cool. Today, because I'm a pro wrestling fan, this one is even more special for me. Tell us what you got here with Goldberg.
Well, in 1998, we had a week off, I think, at some point during the season. I think it was towards the end of the season. Goldberg was, the hottest thing. I think he was about 50, he never lost.
Oh, yeah. He was WCW champion back then.
Yeah, so I played with Goldberg in 93, 94. He was one of our backup defensive tackles.
So you played with him?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, Goldberg, he was one of the guys on the D-line.
Yeah. No, I remember him playing. I just didn't remember y'all's time overlapping.
Yeah, we're overlapping. So 8 years later, he's the hottest heavyweight thing in the game. So he comes to the Georgia Dome. He's going against Hulk Hogan, the WCW.
I remember that match. Yeah, I remember that.
So they beat him down the whole nine. They're going back to in the dome. They're going back to the tunnel. So all of a sudden, they're going back. As soon as they get out of the ring, going to the tunnel, the Dirty Birds come from the back. We chase them back to the ring. We put some hands on them, even though they told us not to.
Oh, you got involved?
Yeah, we got involved.
You did a run-in?
We did a run-in. I ran.
Amazing.
Look, and I thought I had to take it to another level, B. Look. I had to take it to another level.
Yeah, I like
and pull out the Goon Chuck. That was my wrestler name that day. I'm going to be Chuck the Goon.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
Hulk Hogan didn't want none of me. Hulk Hogan did not want none of me.
There you go. Look at that.
I was about 285, fat and a little bit out of shape at the end of the year, too. Shoot, man. But it was fun. I mean, just another thing that in my Falcons career.
I got to find some video of this.
Goldberg was at the game. He won the match that we had then, but he lost. I'm sorry, Dami. Carolina. Goldberg was at the game the other day.
Don't get me started on that now. I got to find this video of you doing a run-in for WCW. I never knew that happened. I'm very impressed by that, though. All right, y'all, we got to go. We're running a little bit late here. Thanks for being with us. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. We're back on Friday. We'll try to figure out all these issues facing this team, and we'll enjoy doing it with you. We'll see you then. Thanks for being here. AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite.